Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Now Bali podcast with me, Eddie Spears. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing two very special people from Eco Tourism Bali. Eco Tourism Bali is a social impact business that builds communities for sustainable tourism through sustainable verification for accommodation, businesses, and restaurants. Their goal is to transform Bali's image into a sustainable destination by 2030 and contribute to achieving climate neutrality in the hospitality and tourism industry by 2050. I have the pleasure of speaking to Ibu Suzy Hutomo, a passionate leader, entrepreneur, and committed environmental activist. She has been a climate presenter with Al Gore's The Climate Reality Project since 2011. She is also a member of the supervisory board of KAHATI, the Indonesia Biodiversity Foundation, and board of Greenpeace Southeast Asia, and the board of Copernic Foundation here in Bali. She used to be the CEO of BodyShop and continues to be the chairwoman of BodyShop Indonesia. I am also joined by Rahmi Fajar Harini, who is the co-founder at Eco Tourism Bali. She joined Ibu Suzy putting the ETB vision into action with an extensive professional background in public relations. Rahmi is also an entrepreneur running Amiga Bali, a retail fashion. She's been actively involved in business export development organizations since 2015 as a board member and coached to assist small, medium enterprises across Java and Bali in implementing their ILO score and certification program. Today, we'll be talking about how Bali can improve its chances and resilience during climate change and how the tourism industry can make sure that Bali remains a destination worth visiting in the future. Big thank you to our podcast supporter, Genesis Creative Center, where we film and record all of our podcasts. And for those of you listening right now, this is a video podcast, so feel free to watch on YouTube or on Spotify. This is a watchable podcast where you can see Suzy, Ami, and I all interacting in this great interview. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. All right, Ibu Suzy and Ami, thank you so much for joining us today. Really looking forward to finding out more about Ecotourism Bali. But before we get into the details of it, I want to talk really big picture, really future,
Right.
and I want to hear about, after everything happens, all your goals are completed, what is your vision? Like, what do you want Bali to be in 20 years, essentially?
Okay. In 20 years.
Yeah, 20.
Okay.
You know,
All
the,
right.
the really like, what is
Vision.
that utopian idea of like that you have in your mind of what Bali should be?
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go first? Okay. I guess in 20 years, we'd have to have a view of what's happening in the world as well, right?
Mm.
So I would think that climate change would have gotten a lot worse.
Mm.
That's one thing. Unless, we can keep to the Paris Agreement. Right now it's not looking likely. So probably we'll have a temperature increase, maybe hopefully just 2 degrees, hopefully, because some actions would have been taken, and possibly we'll have sustainable aviation, because aviation accounts for 50% of the climate effect emissions. So if that's the case, then I would think that Bali would continue to be a favorite destination, basically because it's on the tropics. And in the tropics, we have less of a temperature increase than subtropical and, sort of areas, because of just the way, the weather patterns work. So I would think that like a 1 to 2 degree increase in Bali would still be a sunny sort of paradise. So I would think that it would still be a favorite destination, but definitely we'll have 2 choices. One, if we keep going the way we are, I think this year we might hit more than 5 million visitors, slowly creeping back to the 6 million that we saw in 2019.
Yeah.
And I know that the target is to increase Indonesia's tourism to 20, right? I know you might have heard those numbers. So that's like, another 20-30% increase. So if we keep going that way, it might be that we're going to be quite overcrowded.
Yeah.
So in 20 years, I would think that if we had really good planning, if we diversified and balance between the interests of tourists and local communities, I think we have a great future. But I would think that Bali needs to be a more premium destination in 20 years' time,
Yeah.
where people can really experience the beauty of Bali, as we all know about the beauty of Bali, instead of like the quick,
Change.
3-4 day trip across Bali into all the favorite spots, and in
Instant.
very, so in very high traffic conditions. So hopefully, I think we need to move from a sort of more intensive and low infrastructure, low sustainability, and low climate adaptation kind of place that we are today to one where it would embody all the beauty, the nature, the culture, and all the potential of Bali in a space where the climate isn't quite the same as it is right now. So there would have to be innovation, obviously, new experiences, but I would think that we would continue to be still a major destination if we get it right.
And I imagine that's what kind of sparked this idea of starting Ecotourism Bali, is to pave that path now so that
Investment
you know
for
we
later.
investment for the future, and is also creating resilience for
Yes.
What
worst
might-
case scenarios and if things get worse.
That's correct.
So so where did where did the idea come from? How did it really start and get rolling?
Ibu?
Well, I start and then you can chip in. So, it really started because, well, as you know, I moved to Bali about almost 12 years now, about more than 11 years. So it was just, as you know, the Bali tourism, I was looking at some of the figures, it just went, ooh, like that, like a hockey stick, So, over the last, I guess, pre-COVID, so maybe, just pre-COVID, the 5 years into COVID peaking in 2019, I was really getting worried because just looking at the how to say, the sheer appetite for mass tourism, that really worried me, because then I'm sure we all understand that has serious consequences in land use and all sorts of things, and most of all to the environment, because I'm an environmentalist, so I think a lot about conservation, about the loss of green areas. What's going to happen is going to be deforestation and culture too, because when the paddy fields, get converted, then what's going to happen to the culture around the subak and all of this. And also, I think that we need to be aware that the world is going in a direction where tourism is growing and growing worldwide. I mean, if you see some of the numbers, Europe has actually surpassed their 2019 numbers, which is
Wow.
like, wow, no wonder you see all these pictures of Paris and Amsterdam, people protesting and stuff, because
Over.
that is the pattern. And some people are predicting that by, I can't remember, it's 2030 or 2035, we will have almost 50% of the world population wanting to be tourists. That's just
Yes.
an incredible number. So right now, I think it's about 20 some odd percent. But as aviation continues to be cheaper
Yes.
and more
Affordable.
wide ranging, then it's these kinds of patterns that kind of worries me.
Yeah.
And says that, all right, how can we be resilient? How can we still be this beautiful place that we all love and still obviously have economic benefits? But how do we protect what we love?
Yeah.
So that was the idea. And then, of course, I met Ami here. She interviewed me actually for something.
For
Yes.
sustainability,
Yeah.
yeah. So Ibu is actually my mentor, and talking about sustainability. So we met during COVID, yeah, Bu.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, and somehow there's a spark, and Ibu, in a way, challenged me like, hey, I have this vision about sustainable tourism Bali, and what do you think? And I thought, like, during COVID, I see that the quality of life is different during COVID, which I like personally.
Yeah.
In a way, like, no tourists, but it's not good economically, but learning more about sustainability. We talk about environment, we talk about biodiversity, we talk about conservation, we talk about economy benefit and social impact. So I think this is the key, that it could be a new purpose that, yeah, we need to do this together. Like, we need to do this for Bali, because I see myself, I see my family living in Bali, and I am Balinese. So yeah, there's somebody or something needs to happen for Bali. And yeah, Ibu already have a conversation with Copernic to create this index of sustainability, making some sort of like approachable guidelines for tourism. We're talking about hotels and restaurant here, the major industry. So then the conversation goes on, and then now we have ecotourism, and we have guidelines, and I think also back then sustainability is still in a niche market. So the idea is back then to have this index or criteria on what is sustainability, how to do sustainability available for everybody. And we're talking about the whole industry. So we started with the hotel, and then this year we launched for the restaurant criteria, and I hope that it still continues. So the industry know how to do it. We talk about sustainability, but some people still like, yeah, what is sustainability? What can we do? Like,
right.
how to do it? Like, what is needed for Bali? And the bigger picture, like, yeah, we know that it's needed, or somehow market also demands about it, but where to start? How to do it? So, yeah, we hope that making these guidelines and availability in digital platform could be yeah, one of the solution. Yeah.
And I totally agree in the sense that the idea of sustainability is this sort of very vague cloud of, how do you grasp it? What's tangible?
Exactly.
How do you make this
Exactly.
approachable and practical for everyone, right? It's almost mystical in a sense, like, to be sustainable.
Exactly.
So I guess you're creating guidelines and steps in order to
Yeah.
get people towards that goal.
It's
the
a
end
very
goal.
interesting thing, because I think initially before I met Ami, I had thought that, oh, we just need a set of, sort of say, a list of things you have to do, and then you're sustainable, right? So I should admit, and I wanted something that was easy to do, because I'd researched and I had joined the GSTC class, which was like, 38 categories and 250 questions, right? She's taken the course as well. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, how could anybody, who wasn't like a huge hotel do this? So I decided 30 questions. That was my brief to Copernic. Let's do it in 30, but keep to the same standard, sort of same topics, same categories as GSTC had. But then what we found out as we went along, was just the literacy about sustainability and being climate friendly is totally, how do you say, I wouldn't say non-existent. It's always like a headline level. People know the headline, they've read about it, but they don't really know what's in sustainability or being climate friendly. So what, So even when we wanted to, how do you say, persuade people, introduce people to the sustainability standards, they're like, okay, I want to do it, but so what,
Yes.
Okay, it sounds nice. I want to have it as a headline in my door.
Yeah.
But I don't really know,
Yeah.
why I should, or why I should pay you, or,
Yes,
or,
exactly.
or anything.
Why we have to invest, or why we need to
Yeah, exactly.
onboard.
And it's too difficult and so on. So it's the literacy and the understanding that we're all stakeholders, that this island of Bali, we have to work together, all stakeholders. That's the piece that I think we're discovering now, that we need this awareness between all these stakeholders, so we can all work
We're
together.
at the same page, like,
Yeah.
what to do for Bali, like, in terms of, environment, sustainability, climate,
Nobody can do it alone.
yes.
Well, I mean, I totally agree in the sense that there is this idea of creating collective responsibility.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And especially if you're approaching something from a business side, or if you're
Exactly.
approaching a business, how do you talk about, or how do you convince them of this collective responsibility? How do you convince them that this is a cause worth joining and fighting for and investing in? What's the approach there, and
Yeah,
what's the argument?
maybe Ami goes. She's seen many people.
She's converted. She's on a missionary.
Yeah, I know. I'm knocking on the doors like, hey, I'm
Have
here.
you heard the word of sustainability?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what happened. So yeah, I think from 2 years working on the field, approaching different industry from small scale to big scale. So far, I could sum up there are two kind of people about understanding about sustainability. One that really like Ibu, they're already on board with us. They have this activism within their business or themselves because they know they understand about the preservation of Bali. Because either for the love of Bali or they know that something needs to happen. So their activism in there. But the second one is they don't have it yet, the activism, but they see their economy benefit because there's a demand already, there's market demand already, but only a few people that understand that or few businesses because let's say a friend in a sales department, yeah, now I need to do it, Ami, because I need to show that our business comply to level of sustainability pledge or commitment because this market demand it. So they need to show because it is also related to the long-term vision of sustainable development goals where some sector are already demanded for sustainability report for the financing. So, but that's still in the cloud. But there are two kind of feedback that I have. People that, okay, I want to do it because there's benefit that they know they could see or they could have.
Yeah.
And the other one, like, yes, do it because they know it's important. There's activism to it. But yeah, at the end, people need to do incentive if they want to do something. So environmentalists or economy. So that's two things that what happened.
So people essentially, well, businesses are almost slowly getting almost forced to be environmentally friendly or sustainable.
I think so.
And that's a push. But at the end of the day, from an activist side, you want the pull. You want people to be like, I want to do this. Right? And Bali's special for that in the sense that I feel that we are so much more exposed to the natural environment here.
Yes.
And the problems are come to reality. We see the problems.
We see that.
Yeah, like it's very direct, right? What would you say are Bali's main problems at the moment that need to be addressed more urgently?
I think the first thing, it has to be waste. Because we see it every day, right? Everywhere we go, and it's in the Instagram, it's everywhere. So I think one of the biggest tasks would be waste management, especially plastic. Because plastic is made on fossil fuels. Most people don't really associate plastic with fossil fuels and climate change, but they're actually
all linked.
Yeah.
So and you know the projection is that we will have almost 50% more packaging in plastic in the next, I think it was 10 years if I'm not mistaken. So it's not going away anytime soon. So it's very important actually to act on waste management and specifically plastic. And I think that should clean up Bali pretty well. So that would be the first thing. The second thing I would think is water. Because we don't have any rain for 6 months of the year. Right? I mean, Bali is relatively lucky because we've got the lakes on the eastern side. And so agriculture actually feeds off the lake and those rivers. But like, for instance, in Tabanan, when you don't have rain, then you can't plant rice, for instance. You know, and then if the hotels are taking groundwater, you know, we're going to have sinking.
Yeah.
So there's not enough literacy. I mean, people, there's a problem with water, there's a problem with this. But what we want to introduce now, we've thought about now, we need to do more events
information,
or whatever, events also to get people to understand the linkages, you know, that are there. Because most people just look at their property or their thing and, the waste is over there, you know, we'll clean up our own thing. But everything's actually linked. And the fact that climate change is coming, and we felt it this time, right? Look at the temperatures in July. That was actually one of the highest. In July, we broke the 1.5 degree sealing of Paris, the desired
yeah.
Paris Agreement set at 1.5 worldwide.
Yeah.
We exceeded that on the month of July, and that's, I mean, for me as an environment, that is scary.
Yeah.
Don't know if anybody here feels it's scary. In Jakarta, Tangerang, oh my
It's
God, that
even-
was
yeah.
so hot. I was there. It was hotter than Bali, which is, really an eye opener. But I think that we're now going into the rainy season. People are like, oh, we forget.
It's
People
forget.
have
Yeah,
very
that's
short
the issue.
memories.
Yeah,
as you
short
know.
memory.
So I think climate change is an existential threat, and Bali needs to be aware of that. All of us, all the
Yeah.
stakeholders,
Yeah.
So
When I share at the group recently, there's an association for restaurant and cafe. I showed up the data that for the waste itself, we are actually over. We're an island. We don't do export. We need to manage it here in a small island. It comes back directly to us. And what happened recently, TPA got burned. That's because
Yes.
of non-separation of non-organic and organic, the methane, the climate change. It's too hot and then it got burned. So we are over capacity, over 30%. There's no way to export it, or we need to manage it, and it's already over. There's no place. And about the water itself, the data showed that our debit of water in the
Yes.
south is 3,000 ton per second. Can you imagine?
That's how much we're taking out of
Yes,
the ground.
yeah.
Yes.
And the south, even though on the other area is surplus, but we are deficit because there's over industry, right? On the south especially. So when show it the data, and then it's like, oh, that is the problem, because they never see that is a
there's
problem
no literacy around
until
these things.
until then. That's one of what we do. Like, we showcase that this is what's happening. This is, if we don't do something, that at the end it will impact your business. At the end,
Yeah.
it impact our
Exactly.
existence in here. Like, how can you make money? How can you run a business if, let's say, every year there's trash on the beach? There will nobody come here.
Nobody.
Bali will not be a spot for you as a destination, and then nobody will come to your business if there's no water and trash everywhere. It happened with TPA Surung. Some area didn't get picked up the
Yes,
trash
that's
because
right.
it got burned. So when the problem is in front of them, so they might know, like, oh, we need to do something.
There's
But,
there's this
short
issue
memory.
of visibility,
Yeah.
right? So obviously, when you have the problem is visible, i.e., waste. I would say a lot of the tourism industry does maybe clean up their section
Yes.
of the beach. So because they already know,
Right.
if this is bad, I won't get business. But
Yeah.
water is also quite abstract, and it's invisible, and
That's right.
you're just sort of guessing how much sources you have, especially in the south.
Yes.
And I would say, as a business owner, I would be worried at the idea of one day I turn on the tap and nothing comes out.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It comes with our system.
Right? So everyone's just sort of
Survival,
closing their eyes and being like,
And
it's
as you
fine.
know, it has happened in I think it was Cape Town. They didn't have water for
Africa, Cape Town,
Africa, Cape Town, Africa. They didn't
South
have water
Africa.
for, I don't know, like a whole season.
Because they were groundwater
Yeah.
draining.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
and the climate, of course, it's a
Yeah.
combination of both
both,
things.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, water's direct but invisible. Waste is visible and direct. But then you
Right.
have climate change, which is abstract.
Absolutely abstract.
Right, and this like, you don't really get the direct input or anything, and that requires an even larger idea of collective responsibility.
Exactly. It's what's called a public good. And that's always a problem, right? It's a public good. That means, like, you don't, how to say, what you do and what you enjoy is not directly related personally, but it's a
there.
public thing. Everybody has to do it so that everybody enjoys the benefit.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the difficulty, I think, in most economics even. Public goods are always a little bit more tricky. You need policy, you
Yes.
need that sort of thing.
well, that
lots
goes
of
back
children.
to this idea of who do you approach first, right? Because at the end of the day, who can afford public good? And Amin and I were talking about this before, about, you do have to start at a level which is a more upmarket level when it comes to
Yes,
businesses
it
and
does.
consumers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Right.
does.
So
That's
I,
very right.
I understand you started Eco Tourism Bali trying to be the people's
Yeah.
movement,
That's true.
and as altruistic as that might be, it's difficult to start change from that level. You do
Yeah.
when you have to create sort of business changes, it does have to be at a higher
Yeah.
level, right?
So true. So, yeah, we tried so many things, so many strategy, but the mission is to get more people on board with our mission. That we are the same team for this for Bali. So initially, yes, we approach on more to the grassroots movement, and but yeah, the commitment, probably the understanding, yeah, there's there, but when in terms of commitment, there needs a push. So someone said, is it regulated? Do we have to comply? Or so that's more like, oh, they have to do it because the compliance, let's say, more to, you need to be disciplined. But not really regulation. There's more like peraturan memberi wacana, but that's it. If you don't do it, then it's okay. About plastic, about waste, about water, there is, but there's no like, if you don't do it, then you get this.
Yeah.
But some people really approach like, if I do it, what's the benefit? That's it.
Yeah.
And that's already seen by the upmarket, because they're really close to the market. They're the one that market leader. So they understand that, oh, if I do this, then I can get this. So then it's easier to talk, to convert them, because they already understand the benefit. So that's why now it's not that we change. We still want everybody on board, because it's a digital tools anyway. Everybody can have access. And you can see the components, you can see the criterias. But we'd hope that this major market showcase them that they do it and it's possible. Hopefully it later goes down and be inspired probably. So that's for the business side. And for the government, we work a lot with the government, Ibu, from the tourism board, and then also for the policymaker and all until the national. So they are also making planning to make a standardization for this sustainability, because it is needed. So we work with the Kemenpar for the standardization guidelines. And then, for the province, we work with the Bali Tourism Board, that they're really on board since beginning, because Ibu is part of Bali Tourism Board as well, that it is needed. They see that it is important for the industry to know what is needed for Bali, the checklist, and then they can measure it. Once they know the assessment, once they do the assessment, it has a function as a baseline, right?
Yep.
So how to improve? If we already know like there's 3,000 hotels in Bali that, they are in the level C, and then how to improve? We have a baseline to work towards the goals. Like we want to have 2030 Bali as preferred destination, so we know how to make an improvement for that. So we try to provide that system.
Can you give some examples of what you expect the changes or the checklist of what it means to be a sustainable business here in Bali?
Yeah, with those two importance, there are 30 criteria, right, for hotels and restaurants. But as we spoke to some association, we urge for two things that can be improved. This waste management first, and then the water. Because in the guidelines, we also provide on how you can save the water, or first they need to comply if they are doing the legal or illegal source. So that kind of thing of water. So those two is the important. So they just go to our website and then make a page, and then they do assessment. So we know the score, they know the score, and then later we know how to improve from that.
Yeah. But there were also others, right? Energy is one very big
There's
part, and then conservation.
Conservation and social impact, the local
impact.
purchasing and all. Go back to the community.
Yeah.
So a good mixture of sort of what do you consume as a business, but also where you're sourcing from. Are you supporting local products?
That's
that
right.
kind of thing. Yeah. So it's quite a holistic checklist
Yes.
of what does it mean to be sustainable. And I'm sure you agree that the idea of sustainability has always been very environmentally focused.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
it's good, but
Yeah.
it does extend beyond
To social.
that. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Social
Agree.
benefits. Yes.
What would be some examples of social benefits or community initiatives?
So there are From the 30, there are three criteria focused on that. The social impact. One is the local purchasing. So if you want to connect it with climate change, it's also possible because let's say one of your supplier is still outside Bali. And and we try to showcase them that, hey, we have a alternative supplier that is from Bali. So it already reduced the transportation, the carbon
carbon
emission.
footprint,
So then that's local purchasing criteria. And second one is engagement with the community. So it's more like education transfer. So they open for internship for the local because let's say there's big hotel coming out or business and then the site doesn't know what's going on, so they need to open on the interaction for the local, either the internship or partition or as employee. So that's the second one. And the third is that you need to have a culture interaction. So the tourists or the program that the industry have to have this introduction as well. What is about Bali, either the food or either the culture activity. So those three are what we think it's important as well to be in the index of sustainability: local purchasing, interaction, and then culture.
Yeah. And the local interaction, one of the things that we would like to also propose is to improve sustainability and climate literacy in the community, so that what the hotel is doing is understood by the community around it as well. Yeah.
I know some businesses use it in a very good way where they understand that if their staff, many of whom are Balinese,
Yeah.
are learning all of these aspects for work, that they will go home and hopefully implement at home or within
Right.
their own community. So
Yeah.
businesses really are great starting points to
Yes.
sort of
Agree.
spread out these types of thinking.
That's right.
essentially.
And
Yeah.
also businesses are much more effective because our decision making processes are much faster. You know, the problems that we face with sort of government and sort of public, in the public space is that decision making processes are long.
Yes,
And because
bureaucracy.
Bali is a province, like Ami just went to Jakarta to talk about standards, right?
Standards, yeah.
Because Bali is a province under the national,
national-
how to say, government.
Yeah, central
And the
government.
the central government doesn't really want Bali to have its own thing, right? They want
Yeah.
to make sure that, but then that we have a bigger interest to what sustainable tourism than they do. So it's always this kind of how to
Process,
say,
long process.
long process, this tension, which is very much felt, I think, by the leaders in our government, actually, in our province, that there is this tension with Jakarta because, 50% of the, I think, the visitors, tourism visitors all over Indonesia comes to Bali. And yet Jakarta really wants to set the standards for tourism. Well, actually, Bali has to be a
Yes, they
lot
want.
more involved.
Yeah, in the decision making, because most of the tourism GDP comes from
Comes from
Bali,
Bali, yeah.
right? So why doesn't this island have more of a say on a national agenda,
Yeah.
essentially, right?
And the way that we want to help that is by showing that we in Bali are more ahead in our thinking. Because in Jakarta, that's what they have to say. They
Position
respect in a
after,
way.
yeah.
If you know what you're doing, because they're all thinking about policy and competing against Thailand and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if we have more content and to talk about and persuading them, then it gives Bali a bigger voice than just sort of asking for benefit, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So sort of look at the context more. Yeah.
Well, I think it's great that you're obviously helping the businesses, and that's sort of a very practical change that you're doing. Again, it's still private to private a lot of
Yes.
the time.
Yes.
But that's what, like you said, to make change fast, you just get on with it.
Yep.
B2B, business to business. But what I like about Ecotourism Bali, that you've also got a side program, which is this, was it called
Regeneration.
Regenerative.
Yes.
Regenerative Bali.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you maybe talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so as part of, actually, it started as our own responsibility for the environment. So we focus on carbon emission reduction. So there are many ways actually. So, but we focus on the mangrove and then the coral restoration, because yeah, I believe that even though there's also seaweed program, tree planting tree program, but we focus on two things: mangrove, because it is also in line with the mission of the local government. Like Ibu said, water scarcity is one of the problem. Mangrove could help the area sink if we plant more mangrove. But that's why we focus on the south of Bali. And then the coral restoration, I think it's one of the, it's about the circularity. There's so many coral bleach already in Bali, and that is one of actually the asset of Bali. People come here
Yes.
with the for that experience, the apa living the sea, the ocean life. So then. Last year we focused on the east, where they have this restoration and education as well to the local. That's always a business or community that we always support, because it's not only, yeah, the environment is there. There's also a benefit of the carbon, but also to pass the education why it's needed to happen, why it's needed to be done. They always connect with the community as well to transfer the knowledge, because sometimes what happened is people outside Bali come and then, oh, we need to fix this, but then the local are, yeah, that's his
That's
thing.
their thing.
Yeah, that's
The
their thing,
tourist.
the tourist thing, or that's the expat thing. Like they have no idea what's going on, but the others have this passion of how to fix Bali or improve Bali, but there's no engagement. So we always work with the community like that. So this year we moved to the north, Buleleng, because there are more areas now, more areas that can be restored, and they have zonation also for the nursery and all, and they really work with the desa. To have they have a scholarship program for the SMP and SMK, so then they can be a dive master. They can be also the one that economically benefit, because they will preserve the land. They will also have a job in the future, and yeah, we focus on the north now. So two focus now for the Regenerative Bali is the mangrove and then the coral restoration. With the mangrove, we also always engage with the school. So last year, 150 volunteers. This year also, we expect 150 volunteers to plant 1,000 mangrove every year. And we hope that it also can improve on the numbers. And yeah, if we do the Regenerative Body program, we always have a workshop. So introduction on why we're doing it, why it's important, why you need to be involved, and not only planting, but also they will see trash over there.
Yes,
So
exactly.
we do the cleaning first. Like, look at this. Like, if you, this is could be your straw, this could be your plastic cup from a coffee that comes back, and it, yeah, it just go back to the why it's needed to be done. And we do workshop before we do the mangrove planting, and then we do the cleaning, the apa plastic cleaning or the waste cleaning, and then we plant, and we also do monitoring. So not only planting, but we also like, is it working? Is it improving, and how can we improve on that? Sometimes that program usually focus on the input, not necessarily the output. Like it works or not. Like not just only, okay, we've done it, then that's it.
Take the
Yeah.
photo and leave.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
So we don't do that. So we do monitor, and then for a year that from last year, the first regenerative program, it run well. It's 70% live, and then hopefully then we can do
And I
more.
think that's our vision of Bali, that tourism in Bali, like you asked me about 20 years in the future, that would be part of the type of tourism that would emerge, that if you come, you also give back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Amir and I had this vision that people would be able to get onto our site as tourists, and just say, okay, so, either do carbon offsetting or just want to participate. And we're very open for people participating in these programs so that they have a different experience as a tourist.
Yeah, I mean that's that idea of regenerative tourism,
Yes.
and just generally having a more meaningful experience as well, right? Which is, I believe, people are going to more. But what I like about these programs is that it draws attention back to what I would call Bali's original assets,
Yes.
Yes.
right? And
Conservation and
why do people love coming here?
Exactly.
It was natural beauty, right?
yes.
And I'm not even talking about 60 years ago. I'm just talking about when I was young. I would come and go snorkeling, and
Yes.
Yes.
Because
like, oh,
Yes.
you're
exactly.
going here to
Yes.
enjoy nature,
Yeah,
right?
Yes. Yeah.
exactly.
Um,
Climb, go hiking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the attention has been shifted
That's right.
into what are called the supporting industries, which were
Lifestyle
made. Yeah,
industries. Yeah.
exactly. I mean, you have the original assets, which is natural beauty, also the culture, and then all these
People.
industries were grown to support the people coming to see this. But
Yeah.
over time, the supporting
have
industries have
bigger.
become the main reason people come here, and that shifts our focus and makes us forget, what's important and why were people here. So it's great that you're adding these sort of values into people, reminding people of these values, essentially, of this is why we're
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
I think my vision as well is that if I see 20 years, like I want to have like not the quality shifted. So I want to go back to the quality where Bali should be, like back then, the natural preservation and all. I think that is quality over quantity. That's my
Yes.
goal. Yeah, or what we want to achieve. It's really over tourism and all, like it's all about quantities. It's more and more and more, but
That's
prefer,
dangerous.
yeah, and that's dangerous. At what cost? Ibu always said, yeah, but at what cost? Like who will, yeah, it's easy, like people coming in, but who's gonna take care of the risk? Who's gonna the problem? We living here, we will be the one that handling all the problem of over this quantity that is not mitigated. Yeah.
Well, that's a good point, because whether we like it or not, tourism is going to grow.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, and
Yep.
and that's one of those things where you're in a catch-22, where you do want to develop the tourism scene or the tourism industry, and you do want to see growth, because everyone in Bali deserves, their own economic rise and be part of that industry. But how does that balance? How does that growth balance with, having a carrying capacity, or having,
Yes.
yeah. So essentially, like, what are your thoughts on the growth of tourism? Because it seems inevitable that we're developing
just
out
gonna-
west, we're developing up north, we're apparently making a train now on the island. So, everything is changing. So where does this come into the future if all we're doing is growing?
I think things always change, right? I mean, somebody could say 50 years ago when I was in Bali, it was even
Lush,
totally different.
yeah.
Going to Ubud was
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
big thing, right?
Yeah.
So I guess we have to also be aware that times do change, but we need to calibrate and balance the forces. I mean, I personally like the mass transit, because then we get, we have less, how to say, less carbon emission for everybody. But I must say, I
Transport.
agree with Ami that quality over quantity, this is the, how to say, the balance that we must strike. And around the world now, as you know, lots of other places are looking into the same thing. Amsterdam is saying we don't want any more tourists. Paris is saying
Everywhere.
enough is enough,
Everywhere.
right? So also distributing the tourist destination. Because very interestingly, I spoke to this lady who was in the tourism industry in Thailand, and she runs tours for her clients. Well, she's from Thailand, but she comes to Bali and runs these sort of tourism groups or something. And I asked her, so was it like in Phuket, for instance, or Thailand? She says, and how about Bali? He said, well, the problem with Bali is it's all concentrated. In Phuket or other places, they're distributed. So it's less of a burden. She tells me, I said, oh, that's very interesting. So there's more policy towards driving different types of tourism, nature tourism, and improving the nature tourism, like we sometimes see in national parks, in America or somewhere else where it's well managed. We probably need something like that where it's well managed. I mean, the worst thing is that when we don't manage it, then the impacts, the how to say, the detrimental impacts are, long term, they're disastrous. Well, short term, everybody gets quick money, right? Everybody can be a guide,
Yeah.
everybody can
Yeah.
dig a road
Yeah.
and get a motorcycle or something. But long term, I think the impact will be quite dire if we don't have proper management of our natural resources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think Bali has that exact potential to distribute different types of
Probably,
tourism.
Exactly.
yeah. Each
Exactly.
kabupaten has a
Has its-
potential.
Yeah.
has its
And-
own
yeah,
thing.
It has its
yeah.
own special, and the
Yeah,
culture is so
exactly,
different per
yeah.
kabupaten.
Yeah.
Radius
Each region
30,
see.
you can see mountain, you can see lake, you can see beach, you
Yes.
can see white sand beach, black sand beach. So it has potential. Yeah.
I find it so funny. I mean, people have been coming to Bali for years, and so many people don't know
Don't
that there's
know.
a national
Exactly.
park
Yeah.
in the
Exactly.
West.
Sure,
Exactly.
yes.
It's probably one
Yeah.
of my favorite
Me too.
destinations.
Yeah, yeah.
Easily.
Me too. I love it.
Yeah.
It's,
love
it's
it.
pristine, it's beautiful,
Yeah.
it's quiet, and
Yes. And
Gorgeous.
the
The
ocean over
mangroves
there
and
is
the
really
deer and
nice.
everything.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just
Pretty.
marvelous.
Yeah.
And just to take a tangent on that, one of the regeneration that I initially wanted to do
Yeah.
was to help the national park.
Yes.
Yeah, but that was like a tall order because they
Yes.
needed to regenerate their savanna because we're very unique in Bali, right? We have so many microclimates,
Yes.
and they have the
They have
savanna.
different, yes.
You
Yeah.
know, over there they have to restore. I'm like, wow, that is a tall order.
yeah,
And also
that's,
have
that's its own job.
Yeah,
basically,
that's
yeah.
like another job. So okay, let's try something else
Yes.
first.
I almost kind of am sad that I'm talking about the West Valley National Park now. More people are going to go there.
Exactly.
It's a secret.
We should keep it to ourselves.
Yes.
But there's an aspect of when people go and see these things. I'm a big believer of like that's when you convert them. That's when they're like,
Yeah.
oh wow, this is nice. Oh,
Yes,
we
yes.
need more of this. We need more. Like wow,
Yeah.
we need this kind of place, right? Because it's a
Yeah.
different feeling.
Yeah. If you can control, like you create some sort of like standard on
And
how
quota
people
and stuff.
yeah. So I think instead of this is already, let's say, chaotic. Like you don't know where to start to regulate in here. But when you spread out, you showcase there is potential. Let's say in Menjangan or the national park or the others. You can create them. You be the boss of your land. Like, oh, this is what you can and cannot do.
Yeah,
It has to
exactly.
be
The do's and don'ts.
the do's and don'ts. You have to really from the beginning is that because some people just don't know because they just go there, okay, potential, and then blow it up viral in Instagram and then that's it. But somebody has to take charge
Exactly.
like before, and then you can supervise, then you can create to be a quality tourism.
Yeah.
So
Very true.
it has to be at the front, like do's and don'ts. Because what happened now, like because there's no do's and don'ts, like people just come here like over and then like, oh, you have to do this. Oh, I did not know. It's always like comes down to
Yes.
I did not know that I have to. Some already emang nakal ya kan,
Yeah.
but people like, oh, I did not know. Oh, you have to do
Because
this.
we are a community culture, right? Indonesia and especially Bali juga, yeah. We're a community culture where a lot of things are unsaid. You know,
Like-
harus ngerti
Yeah,
gitu
yes,
loh.
yeah.
So that's it's a cultural thing. But when we have more and more visitors, those things have to become obvious, to the
True.
visitors, and that is a big step.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big step for us who live in Bali. I mean, especially the people who are Balinese. It's hard to, even Javanese juga also hard. It's just hard to set out the conditions before they
Before,
come.
yeah.
Yeah, because culturally, as Indonesians, we've always stayed quiet and like
Yeah,
there's
welcome.
that
Yeah,
politeness
yeah,
of like,
yeah.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
want to
yeah.
do that?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
And then
Yeah.
kalau sudah
Udah itu baru
keterlaluan,
ya,
then
baru.
it like
Yeah.
blows
It
up.
explodes. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and so I
that's
think
awesome.
there is a responsibility for us to be like way more forthcoming early on. Like, here's what you can do. Here's what you can't do.
That's right.
Don't come here thinking this because I still think there's an attitude of visitors coming here like it is the Wild West. Like they literally come here
That's right.
because there are no rules.
That's
Yes.
right.
Right. And so you're already coming in with the wrong
Yeah.
mindset. And
Exactly.
You're attracting
And we might
people.
not really want so many of them, right?
Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. I mean, if we go, let's say, if we go to other country, we know that what can or cannot. So
Yeah.
then we don't do something wrong.
Yeah.
So it has to be clear from that front that we have regulation. We have some areas might be different from one another, but yeah, we have to, and it's possible. Let's say if we go to temple, it's clear.
Yeah, it's
You have to
clear.
do A, B, C, D. You cannot do it. So
it should be clear.
It should be clear. It should be clear.
yeah.
But that's something that is already applicable.
Yeah.
Everywhere in temple, it's clear. Like the women cannot go in if you do this and this, and you have to be. So it's clear.
You
so
have to
it's
have
possible.
the kain,
Sarung and all.
kamen, you
Yeah,
cannot
so-
go in. But you see, that also, I think that we in Bali, a lot of us don't think from the visitor's point of view.
Yeah.
We need to, like you're a fresh visitor from
Yeah.
Nanjing or something and
Yeah.
coming to Bali, where do I see, where are the regulations?
Yeah.
How do I
100%,
know,
yeah.
we need to put on those glasses, I
Yeah.
think. Instead of like the old expats have been ever, well, of course you don't need to tell them very
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They already know, for the tourists. Yeah.
I've come back from Japan 2 months ago. I went on holiday.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the perfect example of you're coming in with caution.
That's right.
Of like, this culture is very
Yeah.
strict. It's
Mm-hmm.
very sort of its own way. And you appreciate that
That's
it's
right.
different.
Mm-hmm.
But you come in almost like, I don't want to upset anybody.
Yes,
Like
yeah.
even walking into the taxi the wrong way or something,
Yeah.
or like the trains, like what's the etiquette? It's good to have
The
that sort of
respect.
mindset of
Yeah.
like, I don't want to get things wrong.
Yeah.
Like, is this okay? Is this okay? And I never felt like unwelcome. It was just my attitude to respect.
You're cautious
right.
about,
Yeah.
you're
Rather than
responsible.
be like, oh, like, why can't I do this?
Yeah.
Right,
It's
right.
more
I
like,
think-
oh,
I-
this is how you do things.
I think respect is the right word, exactly what you're saying. That we need to engender this sense of respect for what Bali is and what we have. Because sometimes we don't really realize what we have. Sometimes when I take visitors around, I'm like, oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. Yes. They're
You
like,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've been, January now, Bali celebrates its 15th anniversary.
Ooh la la.
Wow.
15 years of publishing.
Congratulations,
And thank you very
Eddie.
much.
Yeah,
But I was only been here for 10 years of the 15. But the fact that we can continue to find new things to write about. Right? We were bi-monthly now, but we used to be monthly. And we used to have stories about Balinese dance every single edition
Yeah,
before,
imagine.
right?
Yeah,
And people just know
imagine.
four.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, we've published at least 120 different dances,
Yeah.
all different.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And it's like, well, the wealth in this place. And
Exactly.
just saying like, oh, I'm bored of Bali. It's like, oh, then
No,
you
there's
haven't gone
always
far
yeah,
enough.
no, there's always something. Yeah, sure.
Go off the beaten track, you will
Yeah.
find stuff.
You will
Something,
find
yes,
something
yes.
different. It's true.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
evolve as well. It evolved for tourism, for destination.
And
It's
I
always
think
something new.
if we engender that respect for what we have, then it will also help the young people of Bali to respect what they have. Instead
The
of wanting
ownership,
to
yeah.
work in all the lifestyle industries, the supporting industries.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, there's space for that. I mean, we
Of
all
course.
enjoy
of
that.
course.
But there's that sort of how much is weighed up in one side and how much is skewed towards that and how much do we sacrifice for that rather than
That's
having
right.
this good balance of everything, essentially.
Yeah. And how does that become of value as well for the tourists?
Yeah.
You know, in a respectful way, in a way. So then you have sort of more equality in terms of income, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I was worried at some point post-COVID where we had a lot of visitors and foreigners spending longer on the island because they're stuck here, but they still had a visitor's mindset, but
That's right.
they were residential,
Yes.
right? And that's a really tricky mindset.
That is tricky.
And then we saw a lot of clashing, unfortunately.
That's
and,
true.
And that's a social impact that we don't talk about much of, like, you know, if we don't communicate things towards visitors of how we expect them, then we create conflict and a lot of social problems as well. And ironically, the clash from that is that the locals look bad internationally because like, oh,
Yeah.
they're aggressive, they're bad. It's like, well,
Yeah.
Well,
you know,
not really.
we don't have the patience of
know,
these things, but all
yes.
they see is like, oh, it's not a friendly place to
Yes.
go. We don't want it to get to that level of
That's right.
of like bad PR, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, on this outside of you're creating the bricks and mortar of what it means to be a sustainable island, sort of really creating that skeleton and the foundation for businesses. Outside of that, what would you say is sort of the messaging that we should be spreading from Bali once all of this is moving?
I think the message is that we value what we have, and we want, the world to come and enjoy what we have, but in a respectful manner.
Yes, responsible. Yeah, more responsible. Yeah. But for us, I think the homework still like to be clear. We are at the same page on how we guard the asset, and with in terms of the environment, where do you want to see, like it keeps on developing, right? So until when? That's the environment preservation. How you preserve it, because if you don't do something, then Bali will not be Bali.
Yeah.
For the interaction with the others, we have to have a clear do's and don'ts and clear message, clear regulation, and spread it out to the potential tourists that it's there, the culture is there, the like when you go to Japan, it's clear, right? What you have to do, what you don't and can do. So it has to be clear as well, because what happened now, it's open, we're welcome, we are so welcome, but then once the problem, then we're the one that cleaning it. So make it at front that it has to be clear what is do's and don'ts.
And is that part of what you advise to businesses that you work with?
Not quite as much, mostly on the sustainability and sort of climate maybe, but we have not touched the more social issues.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, you already have like a good directory of businesses that you already work with.
Right.
So I mean, to think about them as being, they can do the work of the messaging, because all they're doing is basically promoting Bali to come.
That's
So
right.
they could definitely be that sort of spearhead to share these messages across collectively, essentially, right? Yeah.
People on board with us,
So I mean, from a business side, there's one thing, but how about, because obviously you both live here, how do you both live more sustainably in Bali? What are some of the practices that you do at home? I know on your Instagram, Sustainable Suzy, you have a lot of tips and tricks of gardening and recycling. And so what are some things that, if people living here?
First of all, I'm I really worry about the climate, and I'm not fond of using a lot of energy from coal-fired plants, because the only coal-fired plant we have, as you know, is in the north. Well, it's in the north, but the energy is being used all over Bali, especially in the south. So we have a responsibility to really use less energy, and I have a lot of solar panels. Probably I have quite a large installation of solar panels in my home. So that is really, for me, the first thing that I wanted to do. Well, because coal plants, besides carbon emission, it's also pollution. This is why
As we see in
Jakarta.
Jakarta,
There's 16 coal plants around Jakarta.
Exactly.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's
It's
why.
crazy, right?
Yeah.
We only have one, and it was promised that it was going to go to LNG, which was even cleaner, but I
Natural
haven't
gas,
looked. I don't think they've done it yet, but
There's
that's
a lot
supposed
of
to
batu
happen,
bara.
because there is a roadmap for clean Bali,
Yeah,
but just not enough political will probably to push harder. Although there are more solar installations now happening, sort of bigger, they're trialing out bigger solar installations to generate electricity for the grid. But I think we still have responsibility as individuals to adopt green energy. That's my first thing. Second thing would be waste, obviously,
Yes.
and water. Those are the three things that I, try to work on in my home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me, what I try to commit is to try to reduce on any consumption. Like if the team at home, we give all the cutleries and all, like everywhere we go, like make sure that
Yeah,
you just
don't.
reduce every day. We produce waste, so things that we can control is our consumption. So try to reduce. It's daily thing. It's a personal commitment, and then maybe it also could amplify to bigger, like it become behavior, right? So that is the first and still the priority to reduce our waste. And yeah, the others come naturally, like if you don't use the lights, or we change the light to LED, something like that, reduce it, like the aircon and all. So that kind of like commitment that happening in work and also at home. So yeah, that's what principle that we.
Are there any
Very.
local communities or organizations that you both work with, or maybe on a personal basis, or
Yeah.
just like volunteering? Do you want to give some shout outs to
Well,
some of
yeah,
those?
first, obviously, Eco Bali Recycling. I mean, I've been with them for 11 years.
Yeah.
You know, they take all my plastic and glass and all the unrecyclables. They take it and they do a brilliant job.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for me also for home, yeah, we do with Eco Bali, the separation and all. And then now we try to do the composting at home with biopori. But there's also one that since last year, the Black Soldier Fly,
Yes,
Maggie
Maggie
Farm.
Farm.
So they manage the organic to some urban compost is also for
Also,
composting. But the new thing that we're happy is that this Black Soldier Fly, Maggie Farm, they recycle the waste, the organic waste, to become food pakan untuk
For
for
fish
and
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 cattle.
chickens. or
chicken,
something.
Yes,
yeah.
that's right.
So I mean, yeah, the biopori is more to soil fertilization, right? So it's there, but at home, gardening somehow it always like doesn't happen to me. Right? So then, but to give out the organic one to Black Soldier
Yes,
Fly, and it
yes.
becomes something like
Usable. Yeah, it's
usable.
That's a very
Yeah,
circular.
and
Is
now
exactly,
they
yeah.
have a scheme where
Yeah.
you can buy the set. So they give you the worms. So every 2 weeks they'll come and switch the worms.
I'm out. You lost me. You lost me at worms.
It's edible. It's edible also.
Yeah. If they dry the worms,
Yeah,
you can eat
yeah,
them.
Okay.
highly protein.
I
Yeah.
High
tried
protein
one.
snack.
Yeah, exactly. For the one that do gym, because one UMKM also make a food for
Protein
that,
shakes.
like protein bar
Yeah.
made of that.
Yeah,
But you
exactly.
don't see it as well.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's
We'll give it a different name.
Yes. We'll give it some time. That might take some time
give
to
it some
fully
time.
adopt that one. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, 60% of the waste is organic waste.
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
you can,
so we have
then,
to-
yeah.
Yeah.
Composting is key.
Composting, yeah.
That's really key.
Yeah, I'm going back to what you're saying about TPA, the landfills that were on fire, and how much of all this is linking. When the landfills were on fire, people were sort of like, "Oh, why is this happening?" But it's because we don't separate our waste, because there's so much sort of flammable materials that we haven't separated. Then there's the organic waste creating
That's
the
right.
methane, and then there was the high
climate.
temperatures from climate
Yeah,
change,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it all just created the perfect storm for
Exactly.
this fire.
Yes.
And you need to see all those different aspects to understand, like, and that's when we saw again a direct sort of consequence of our own actions
That's right.
blowing in our face.
That's right.
Yeah. I have a question about sort of the balances between Bali being so sustainable, and I go back to Jakarta, and we've all spent time in Jakarta. You obviously used to live there as well,
Yep.
Suzy. Why is the capital so far behind an island in its thinking of sustainability? And is it actually? Yeah.
Well, yes, because it's Gotham City, right? It's about wealth. Number one,
Gotham
in
City, yeah.
Jakarta is about wealth. I mean, you have to admit that's their number one concern. We're a tourist destination, and we connect to nature, and that's why I moved here, because I wanted to connect with nature. I grew up around nature, so I wanted to have that connection. In Jakarta, you really don't need to do that.
Yeah.
So number one is just 50% or even more of the money in Indonesia flows through Jakarta. So so that's the one reason. But slowly, because world trends around sustainability is rising, so more developments are picking up this trend.
Yeah.
Like new real estate
Yeah.
and new malls. They've all incorporated sustainability elements, and quite a few buildings are also, in fact, some of them have taken the LEED standards, which are American standards, which are quite quite difficult, you know. But some people have committed to that. The sort of like, if you're really wealthy and you have like buildings, you know, maybe like 2 of them would be LEED certified
Yep.
because
Yeah.
you owe it to the, you know. But
Which, yeah.
primarily because Jakarta's about money. That's my opinion.
For me, I think because there's no direct consequences because you don't see it. In here, for me, when I moved to Bali as well, like I go to the beach, I see the trash.
Yeah.
That's exactly like, oh, it could be, yeah, like I said earlier, it could be my cup of tea or coffee, come back, or a straw. So you see it, and then in Jakarta, where do you see the environment? No, it's just
Yeah.
buildings and buildings.
It's like
and
out of sight, out of mind.
out of
Yeah,
sight,
exactly.
yeah.
Or else you
So
have the
it's
poor
not-
people,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
exactly,
who are
So
struggling with that.
then the trash, somebody take care of it. Like in here, like there's a TPA, if there's something over, and then you don't get picked up. Jakarta, I don't think they don't see it as a problem. So
Yeah.
then there's no urge to
Yeah.
change or to do something because it's all taken care of. Probably that's my opinion.
The only thing that is now changing is air pollution. Because
yeah.
air pollution is public, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, doesn't matter what class you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is
That's
really
bad.
causing. I mean, Greenpeace is working on that.
Really?
Yeah, I
Okay.
used to be part of Greenpeace, so you know, and they are working on the air pollution issue to raise awareness. They're going to build some clean rooms in Marunda, which is one of the worst polluted areas in Jakarta, to allow children and pregnant women to sit in that room
Yeah.
for like
That's
a couple hours a day.
that's pretty extreme. That we
Exactly,
have to create
that you have to
rooms
create.
in order
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
breathe healthily.
It's your right
Yeah.
actually to
have
inhale,
clean
to
air.
have clean air.
Yeah.
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 And it was a few months ago #1 in the world.
Yes,
the
indeed.
worst city.
Worst-
Yeah, polluted
air
city, air
pollution,
pollution,
yeah, in the
air
world,
pollution.
yeah.
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 That's Jakarta.
Yeah, that's why we're all here, right?
inhale, like fresh air. Yeah.
Yeah, before you get on the plane, everyone's just breathing.
Yeah, I know,
thoughts.
like,
Ah.
some point maybe bring the oxygen ourselves. I don't know. Yeah, it's that bad.
So
yeah.
why were you so obviously being in that surrounding Ibu Suzy in Jakarta for quite a long time?
Oh, yeah, long time.
Why did you develop this sort of sensitivity to climate change and environment when you're in that city setting?
Because I grew up when Jakarta wasn't like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I still remember going to Puncak and spending a lot of time in the mountains, you know, and my parents had sort of a villa with a very big sort of natural space. So I spent a lot of my childhood in that environment, actually. I did. And of course, coming on to the environmental movement quite young, you know, so that sort of triggered, and then joining the climate movement thereafter and so on. So, you know, so that was just my path, I guess.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I mean, coming back to Bali, it's sort of, especially for, let's say, I'm 31. Trying to discount myself. I'm 31, and I'm thinking like, you know, that is the sort of the time period that Bali has changed so
That's
much,
right.
So
Yeah.
I would love to see people my age who've grown up here to have that same feeling of like, I need to look after my home.
Yes.
Because I've seen it what it was. And like you said, we all have to accept change. There's always going to be development, but it's like what kind and what can we do? And there's obviously
right.
there's obviously some great examples of people who grew up here, like Gary Benchkip from Sungai
That's right.
Watch, Melati Waisin from Bye Bye Plastic.
Yes.
And on a business side, we've spoken about, like, I'll give a shout out to Sayan Giolino from
Yes.
Waterbomb. Just
Yes.
literally the
Yes.
kind of
Yeah.
easy person to be like, we need to do something for the environment. Yes, because I really want to do
That's
it.
right.
It's
And they're doing
ada
it, yeah.
keinginan. It's like that want just to do good. And the Eco Mantra boys as well,
Yes.
Sean Nino and Matri
Yes.
Fisher.
Mathieu,
Yeah.
Fisher.
And it's that sort of mindset of like, I just want to do it because it's good
Yes.
for maybe it doesn't have to be for the world, does it?
No, no,
Just
no, no,
do
no,
it
no.
for your
Where we
island.
live, yeah.
The idea is that, like she said, you know, like Ami said, everything we do has impact on the environment, on the planet. So if you really want to do something, there's actually a lot you can do, because you can look at the impact that you are directly responsible for. And you know, the people you've mentioned are people who said, well, I can create an impact on the things that are just around me
Yeah.
and the things that I'm responsible for.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sometimes people say you really can't change things because if government doesn't change, if the
Then you
UN
don't do
doesn't
anything.
change, but really there are things you can do.
Yeah.
And that's how you start, I think.
Yeah.
And they've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing it for their island home, and
Exactly.
that's enough. And more people need to think about that,
Yeah.
and think, especially more. There's lots of sort of local Balinese as well who are
course.
growing that awareness.
Yes,
And-
Yeah,
apa
we have
itu,
many
the bamboo,
Arif Rabik.
yes, Eric
Yeah.
Rabik, and
Even Papaya Sumampan, local
Yes.
Balinese is
Yeah.
one first
who's
eco
that
warrior
small,
introduced
but he started to
biopori
clean up
from
his
areas and amplified to 50 kaka around, and then the desa now it already make economy benefit from the compost and reduce the plastic. So
Yeah.
there are many if you reach out like grassroots things, they already doing it.
Yeah, the nice thing about Bali is that you do have groups of people who have lots of initiatives. I think the thing is that we don't know how to scale.
Yeah.
Really.
True.
I mean, we look at it from a
Many.
business perspective. We
Yeah.
don't really know how to scale. Yeah.
And create that sort of sense of togetherness, like, oh, we need to just work together and collaborate.
That's
in a way
right.
where
And
we're all-
also Bali works in 2 languages. That's another thing. The English and then the
Yeah,
Indonesian.
local
Three
and then
languages, actually.
3
yeah,
Balinese,
with
see?
Balinese, yes,
So
exactly.
you have different sort of,
Yeah.
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 Different
Yeah, everyone's
groups,
sort of
yeah.
working at different sort of scales,
Yeah.
essentially.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
But
Bali.
of course, you're working with businesses, which is good, which is at the forefront of the tourism aspect here in Bali.
Yes.
So I think it'll be great to hear, what kind of businesses should get in touch with you and why, and can you share what you'd like to, how they can work with you essentially and what you can offer there?
Yeah, so we try to reach out to the whole stakeholder, right? They have their role, like from the government, policymaker, also the industry that able to work, all the initiative. So if you go to our website, we created tribes, and the tribe is depends on the role. So, but the one that can do our assessment and to be verified so far is for hotel and restaurant, and we call them Green Force. And then the supply chains for initiative movement, they are the one that actually can support this industry work towards sustainability. We call them Green Pal. And then for policymaker, government, partners that can facilitate or help us to work on our mission, we call them Earth Guardian. So we try to include everybody to be in our communities basically, because we cannot work alone. So we work with this 3 classification. So hotels and restaurant, they can do assessment, they can see our criteria and guidelines, sustainability. So Green Pals, we need them because we cannot work with I mean, I want to convert, I want to do, let's say there's a sample big hotel in Ubud. Yeah, we already separate our ways, but we still working with the Banjar, let's say, and the Banjar still go back to one allocation. They don't separate. So yeah, I need a local supplier in Gianyar. Who is it? So we connect them with, let's say, the local off-taker for the waste. So we need that. And then some also like, yeah, but is there policy? Is there like yeah, we work with the local, or like there's Pergub, there's this, and there are the Earth Guardians, or some need investment for solar panel. There's a big solar supplier. There's also Earth Guardian. So we try to include everybody to on board and to be able, so we can bring this mission, able to do this mission.
Yeah,
so,
and I think that's how we kind of grew. At first, I was much more of okay, everybody should do the standards, so then you're green. And then I think Ami very rightly pointed out, doesn't work that way. We need a community because they all need something. They all need something. And I think we've become like a hub in a way to help to connect people, to enable things to happen. Because like she said, the most important thing is that things happen. So that's our focus now, not just hotels and restaurants, but if they need something, let's make things happen. And therefore we're going to run
Keep
more
it
events
wrong.
probably around also improving literacy.
Yeah.
Because once there is literacy about sustainability and climate change, then you understand how the pieces fit together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And what's your approach there when it comes to literacy? Is it, there's two ways of doing it, I would say. It's like creating that sort of sense of loss. Is it,
Oh,
there's like,
okay.
there's the fear way,
Yeah,
and then there's that
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
like, oh, imagine a dreamy, beautiful world, but it's also,
Right.
what's a
Yeah.
better
You
approach,
really need both.
Yes.
Because you have to start with the current, and then you need a point. It's like storytelling, right? You need the crisis to happen, and then you've got a resolution. So you do really need this storytelling approach, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they got to be scared a little bit, and then to say, well, it's not
It's
that
possible.
bad, and this is what we must do.
Yeah, imagine
Yes.
it's this bad.
Yeah.
We need to avoid that. Yeah,
Exactly.
And then
yeah.
we can achieve this,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
the vision. Yeah, because I don't also believe like fear campaign or if that's always not a good thing.
Yeah. If
Yes.
it's only fear,
Only
doesn't
fear,
work.
no, it has to be balanced.
Because
out,
people
right?
then don't want to speak to you.
yeah, exactly.
I
Like,
know.
oh,
Every
yeah.
meeting with her makes
Yeah,
me
yeah, yeah,
depressed.
yeah, exactly. Okay. So there's also possibilities or like
Yeah,
incentive or
Yeah,
it has to be balanced. Yeah.
great. Well, I think that's everything. I think we've
Yeah.
covered a lot, actually. So thank you so much. What's the website again, and where can people follow you?
www.ecotourismbali.com and
Ecotourismbali.com.
then Instagram, Ecotourism Bali.
Okay.
Please follow, like, share, comment.
And TikTok as well.
Oh yeah. And TikTok is more like a really short how you call it tips on how to do steps of sustainability. Let's say we're talking about waste management. There are so many steps, so many approaches. So it's just really short that sometimes the website like where to go, what to do, but TikToks, follow us on TikTok as well, Eco Tourism Bali.
Great.
And we do highlight Eco Warrior or grassroots movement. Everybody is in our also in the YouTube, youtube.ecotourismbali.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for starting this mission. And I look forward to more and more people sort of joining in and more of the business joining in as well.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
thank you,
Exactly.
Ibu Suzy. And
Thank you,
Ami,
Eddie. Thank you
for
so
your
much.
time.
Tammy, thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very much, Eddie.
And we look forward to supporting your mission as we keep going.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Now Bali podcast with me, Eddie Spears. If you enjoyed that episode and you enjoyed hearing what Ibu Suzy and Ami had to say, make sure to check out their website and see how you, either as a business or consumer, can be part of a sustainable future for Bali. And also, please support this podcast, share it with a friend if you enjoyed this episode, or follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, or subscribe to our newsletter. These are the ways that you can support. Or please just send us an email saying that you really enjoyed one of the episodes or this episode specifically. Thanks again to Genesis Creative Center, and thank you for listening. Take care.